Yo, this is like really, really dark though. This is really dark. Hold on, let me see if I can increase. Can you guys even hear me? Am I heard? Am I heard? Can I be heard? I'm waiting until you guys say that you hear me, and then I'll start. Yes, they can hear me. Sweet, sweet. I don't like the quality of the video though. I gotta fix that. I don't know how to fix it. But welcome to After You Read The Promise. So this is our spoiler review of The Promise. I'm not going to do a lot of retread in the sense that I'm not going to talk a lot about what I did or what I already talked about in the review. But generally speaking, I enjoyed The Promise. The Promise, of course, is the first comic to take place after The Last Airbender and the continuing adventures of Aang and everyone else after the events of The Last Airbender. It's a graphic novel I hadn't read since it came out, which was like a while ago. What was it, like 2011 or something like that? I can't remember the date exactly. I really don't like how dark this is. Hold on, let me see if I can change this. But then how am I going to see the chat at the same time? Hold on, I'm going to change something really quick. Gonna change something really quick. Pop out chat. Yeah, I like that better. And then let's go to something where I actually can. Ooh, oh god, that's probably too bright. Is that too bright? Is that too bright? Is that too bright? I think we're all good. I think we're all good. All right, so we sing. I'm not a singer, but yeah, something I really like. So I'm just gonna go through all the points that I kind of had as I wrote them for my spoiler review, and then at the end we'll open it up to Q&A about the book, and I guess just general Q&A in general that relates to The Last Airbender, just so we can keep it relevant. But yes, so the first note I had, this sort of sets up Aang actually having to be an avatar and stuff. Oh yeah, so what I really liked about this story is that this is the first time we actually get to see Aang being a regular avatar, because this is what avatars generally do. They're not always stopping, maniacal fire lords or anything like that, or doing huge, big. I mean, granted, of course, they're always saving the world and the fact that they're keeping balance of the world, but they're not always doing crazy big war stuff. So this is the first time, at least in the context of this graphic novel, that we see Aang just being a regular old avatar, dealing with small time disputes. So I like that idea, and I always wish that they could have easily kept the story going on. I'm not even sure why they didn't, like, why Nickelodeon never picked it up for like a fourth book or fifth book or sixth book when it was so popular, unless my memory of the show's popularity is wrong, because it could be that it got its popularity a little bit later, because I remember that it did come out on Netflix initially, when Netflix had streaming and stuff like that at the beginning of Netflix's huge takeover. I don't remember so many people really being into it, now I think about it, until the first Netflix run. And now we have, of course, the second Netflix run, and that's why we're seeing all of this resurgence of Last Airbender stuff. So now I'm wondering, now I think about it, like, when it first premiered, was it that big? It could have been like maybe a very niche following, but it didn't have a huge, huge undertaking. But yeah, I really like that about this version of the comics, or just that it feels more it just feels like regular day Avatar stuff. And I think they could have easily made that a series going out. And it didn't have to necessarily be called The Last Airbender. It could have been called something else, a different series name. And they could have expanded out beyond Aang. So we can follow Toph, we can follow Katara, we can follow Sokka, stuff like that. But for the life of me, I don't know why they didn't, because and the only reason I can think of it as an executive for a big studio would be that, hey, it's not profitable. But it had to be. They made a movie of it, or they wanted to make a movie of it, not 2 years after, 3 years after the show ended. So I have no idea why they didn't do book four, unless simply the creators were like, "Now we're good. We told the story," but then they left the loose hanging thread about Zuko and his mom and stuff like that. So, cool thing about this comic too is that it takes place right after the show. Actually, it overlaps the show, which I thought was kind of cool. The final beats of those episodes, like, actually we see right after the final shot of the of the series because Katara and Aang sharing a kiss, and then Sokka comes in, which is something we didn't see in the show, but something that happens in the comic, and he talks about the Oogie's and how it's weird if they're together and kissing in front of him, which I also agree, man, it's kind of weird. I'm not a Tang person. I'm not a Tang person. Oh yeah, and I love like the little details that showed up in the comic occasionally. Like for instance, when they were riding Appa during the fireworks show, and then you see them going into like a nosedive on Appa. If you look really closely, you can see Toph not having a very good time. She's just there like holding on and just trying to hold on for dear life, which I think was like pretty cool. And I like that about the comics in general. Like I think even Sokka had a weird face while something. It just felt like I was watching the show. It's just that if everything that you would see in the background of like the animated TV series is the same thing you'll see in the comic book, and even like the exaggerated look and the what I like to call the Toph Peanuts look, where she has like the big open wide mouth and the oval face or the circle round face. So I thought that was really cool. This one, of course, is about the Fire Nation colonies and how now, because it's been 100 years of generations just living in there, they've become those fire. Initially, when you're reading the story, you think about, oh, okay, well, it's just that the Fire Nation is very embedded into that land because that's where they grew up. That's all they know. But it's more than that, and I like that it goes deeper and that it's not just about firebenders and fire colonists who are there, but also the people that they interacted with, which used to be, Earth Kingdom people or our Earth Kingdom people, and how they have, these lives together. And of course, this is going to be a catalyst to the Republic City construction, but not quite yet because that's like years and years and years in the future. But I thought that was all done really well. It's mostly about dealing with fire. One of the colonists, Corey, tries to assassinate. Oh yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. Zuko straight up there's an assassination attempt on Zuko right at the beginning, right? From that girl, that Corey girl who comes from the colonies. And I thought that was really weird because it's like, did you try to like talk to him first and be like, hey, don't do this? It seems like she went straight to like, I'm going to murder the prince. Granted, you could say like maybe off screen, there was like protests and like people were against it, but we didn't see it as a reader. So all we're seeing is like, oh, okay, we're going to have the Harmony Pact, whatever it was called. And then you have the next scene, you have someone trying to assassinate Zuko. And it's like, what? How do you get from just, from we're going to agree to this agreement to I'm going to assassinate you, Zuko? I thought that was kind of strange. And it just missed the beat. Like, I think you just needed to see something of like Zuko being kind of dismissive of the protest or saying like, hey, this is the best way. And then trying to like get into his ear and not working. And then you can go on to assassination, but to go to assassination straight off the bat, missing a few story beats there. Oh yeah, and I'm glad the characters called out Aang and Katara calling each other sweetie, because I thought that was so strange, and I still cannot get used to that today. And also it's because they say it so frequently. They say it almost every sentence that they are interacting with each other. They call each other sweetie. And some of even Sokka goes like, can you guys stop doing that? I'm like, thank you, Sokka. I'm right there with you. Can you guys please stop doing that? Oh, I would think I understand the million of nations. Oh, and also I thought it was really weird that Aang would be such a separatist. Oh, hey, that's like a Star Wars reference. Because I would think he would understand, especially being the Avatar, being a monk. I would think he'd be okay with the idea of people intermingling with each other, and even it's really funny too. And I didn't bring this up in my initial review, but tying this into the Kyoshi novel, it seems that the most diverse benders or diverse people in the nation happen to be criminals. Like if you think about the Kyoshi novel, Kyoshi's mother and father, or her mother in particular, I think her mother was the Airbender, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think her mother was the Airbender. The only reason we saw her, rolling around in the Earth Kingdom is because she was a criminal. And because usually Airbenders, they stick around in their temples on either sides of the world, but you don't see them go anywhere else. But you actually do actively see her going around in the Earth Kingdom and interacting with it because she's a criminal. And I thought that was kind of interesting because you have the same sort of diversity with piracy in real world history and piracy. If you look at the golden age of piracy in the Caribbean, not too long ago, like 400, 500 years ago, you'll see that a lot of those crews were very diverse because they came from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds of cultures. Whether you were like, from Ireland, if you were from Portugal, if you were Spanish, if you were a runaway slave, you had all these people who were interacting on the same crew, and they had democracy on their pirate ship. I mean, granted, they were evil people. I think sometimes we romanticize pirates and forget that they did kill and steal shit, but they actually were very democratic in the way that they made their decisions on the pirate crew. There wasn't a lot of racism, at least as far as I can tell from my initial looks into, because you really had no time to be racist when that's your team, that's your crew, and then you're fighting against this bigger force, which is the Royal Navy of the British, or the Spanish Navy, or whoever you're going against. So you don't have time for that, and it's just kind of cool. And I don't know if that's what was intended here with the Kyoshi novel. Or just the idea that I'm coming up with because of Aang not wanting to meld everybody together, but then you should. And it seems like the only people who kind of get that are criminals first, and then the rest of everybody else gets it. But I thought that was an interesting point to bring up. In the second comic, which was mostly about Toph students and about them, winning back their dojo from the fire colonists who were coming back to reclaim it, were funny at first. They were extremely funny, but then they ended up having the same thing. You had a little girl with talking about shoes every time, and then the big guy talking about doom, and then you always have at the end of the panel the guy saying like, "I hate everything." He's basically like another May, and it was just like, okay, I get it. Like at first it was funny. It was like, shoes, and he's doom guy, and he hates everything. But then it happens 3 or 4 more times in the same construct, and it's like, okay, I know what's gonna happen next. And I thought that was really a little bit lazy writing to me. Granted, I do kind of like the payoff for that at the end when we realize that the hate guy, he's actually like a bleeding heart, and he's like this poet who just couldn't express himself. So that payoff was kind of funny enough for me that I was like kind of okay with it, but still, like, on the outset, that's probably my least favorite comic of the 3 comic arc, was because I wasn't really digging that stuff. Oh, and I also loved in the second comic, and again, Zuko always carrying this franchise on his back, his conversations with his father were amazing. Like, I'm really happy that they had him interact with his father, speak with him, and get a little bit of mentorship from him in a way, getting a different perspective. Because while it's awesome, to have Uncle Iroh always in your ear, and I think it's important to have both Uncle Iroh in your ear and your father in your ear, just to get a full view of what it is to be a good ruler. Like, as a ruler, you don't want an echo chamber. You don't want advisors who are always agreeing with you. You want to hear about everything, and it is good to have someone backing you. While you don't want to go too far, as was I and what he was doing, you still want to be strong, and you still want to be there for your people. So he's not wrong in that, saying that you should represent your people, you should protect your people. Like, that's right. He should do that. He should protect his people, but he shouldn't be doing that in the way of, like, killing Earth Kingdom people, or shooting them off. Again, there's a balance, there's a compromise between the two. But you do need to be both strong as a leader, and you also have to be keep an open ear as a leader. And I think that I'm so glad that they had that conversation with his father, and I thought that was really well done. I also have other notes here. I just don't remember what they are. Again, just Zuko in general being indecisive, being caught between a rock and a hard place. I love his conflict and what he has to go through, because he also represents a lot of just my own. I can relate to him in my own life and all that kind of stuff, and how it's hard to be between two, especially now in today's age where we have all this stuff going on politically, and there's like always these two sides that crop up, and you have to choose a side. Granted, some of those debates are easy to choose a side on, but then there's other ones where you're like, well, hold on, let me like listen a little bit and listen to both sides, and not just like get my pitchfork and just be on one side and say the other side's terrible. And that sucks too, because you break dialogue when you do that too, and you're not able to have this compromise. And it's great because Airbender is always good at bringing up these kinds of themes, especially political themes, especially for what it was initially just a kid's show, like a kid's action adventure, but then it has like these deep political aspects to it. I think that was really cool. And it keeps doing that. And I wasn't really liking Aang in this comic. And I said this in my main review, my spoiler-free review, that I feel like that they try to contrive Aang being against, the whole idea of like non-traditional and then everybody has to be separate. I'm like, I really do not believe Aang would like think that, even though it's true that we have had sequences where we've seen him kind of angry about people. It's different how in the Northern Air Temple, there's people who are literally ripping down your walls, your ancient and sacred walls, and building up new stuff. It's different when you see, obviously, people living and you're like, oh no, Fire Nation, you have to be on this side, and then Earth Kingdom, you have to be on this land. Like, it seems like Aang would have already, especially going through the entire series, would have matured past that. So it was always strange for me, or not always, but when I read it, I was like, I don't think Aang would have done that, and I don't agree that this is set up, and I think that it was only set up so that there could be an actual conflict, so that everybody pick their own side, and there's Zuko on one side and Aang on one side, and Katara kind of like trying to figure it out, So I wasn't a huge fan of that one, and I also just woke up, guys. I'm sorry, I just woke up. Was that everything? I'm thinking about back on Cushing. Yeah, I already talked about that. Oh, and of course, Iroh at the end of the graphic novel, I thought was really funny. Him basically creating boba. He's like, "Hey, I had these things where I have like these tapioca balls, and then when you drink them, you have a little treat as you slurp up your tea." And then like, Aang and Zuko were like, "Ugh, this is terrible," and then him being like, "I guess it's before my time." Funny, because boba is a thing, and actually, I agree with Aang and Zuko. I think boba is really disgusting. But yeah, overall, really enjoyed all of this. Oh, speaking of, everyone who is in the chat now, I can open it up to what you guys thought of the comic. Any questions you have about, or what you want me to discuss in the comic that I haven't discussed yet. We'll go ahead. Also, let me say hi to people who are here. Sorry about that, guys. Let me say hi to everybody. What's going on, Mari? What's going on, Linda? What's up, Lord Zell? Yugi. What's up, Yugi? Healthy Dose of Fran. What's up? Gabriel or Gabriel. Leonard Malif. What's up? What's up? Nusis Barrett. What's up? Prajol. Salty Boy. What's up in here? We got Leonard Logan, Leo, Majesty. All right, what's up? What are y'all questions? What I think about Zuko's mom? Zuko's mom actually does not show up in this story. That's in the next one. That's in the search. But for the promise, she only shows up as like a premonition in Aang and Zuko's shared dream, which is pretty weird. The shared dream situation. I don't think we ever established in the past that people in this world can share dreams, but I was okay with it. It was just interesting. It was weird. His relationship with Zuko was confusing too, as well as Zuko asking him to kill him. With everything that's a finale about not killing, and then yeah, that's kind of weird too. Not so much that him saying to in me part, because he can take away bending, but just the question in itself, like that, it went really fast to hey, we're celebrating, to hey, can you kill me if I ever go bad? Like, could you say like maybe like, can you arrest me, or can you like put me down? Like, you're the Avatar. Like, the thing about killing people, I think the only reason you would kill somebody in any kind of situation is because you cannot control that situation. And that's why, in general, a lot of these bigger people that we've seen in the media, who are a little bit more intimidating, tend to be killed because you're afraid, as the other person on the other end of that you yourself are going to be attacked. And so usually in that thought process, Zuko would have to be a lot stronger than he is to contend with the Avatar state, to even consider that whole I'll be too strong to be kept down. Like, maybe if you're like an Azula or something, or maybe like a Toph who's gone bad, then you can say, hey, if I go bad, end me, because you won't be able to control me once I go bad. That's the only time I can sympathize with killing someone, because or I can understand when someone is killed, because you just can't control them. It's like that's the only option, is to kill. But in most situations, especially when you have the Avatar state in play, yeah, you don't have to kill people. You could just put them down, or restrain them because you're stronger than them. Aang was always a traditionalist, being the last Airbender and all. Appa and Aang shared a dream. Oh yeah, Appa and Aang did share a dream in the show. Yeah, he would be a traditionalist, but he also understands what compromise is, and I don't think it was really weird for him to have the Fire Nation or having all the nations separated. Like that just seems so like the solution seems so easy to me, or also not so much that easy, but it seemed like Aang was being very short-sighted about that idea of keeping the nations separate. He's like, are you not looking at this town? Like it's embedded with both fire and earth traditions. There are little children who are born of this. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna have them like, okay, you go to Fire Nation because you're more Fire Nation, or you're gonna stay here because you're Earthbender? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, it doesn't work, and it just didn't seem like it was very smart of Aang to do that. Are you gonna do the core comic as well? Yes, I'm gonna be doing the core comics. How do you feel about Aang severing his connection with Roku? Oh yeah, that's a huge moment. I thought that was kind of, again, short-sighted and weird. Like, sure, you can say like, hey Roku, I'm not gonna listen to you, I'm gonna make my own decision. But to rip your connection like indefinitely with him seemed kind of weird. Again, I don't feel like Aang was really Aang in this book, but I mean, it was approved. Like, it wasn't like the creators didn't like oversee it, so they were okay with it. But for me personally, I don't feel like I was really reading Aang most of the time in this comic. And I think the reason I wasn't super bothered by it to the point where like it affected my overall reading is because Aang is not like my super favorite character of the series or whatever. So it wasn't like it wasn't like Luke Skywalker and The Last Jedi for me. You know what I mean? Like where I really, really love Luke Skywalker, and to see what happened there really got to me. I don't have the same feelings I have for Luke Skywalker as I do for Aang. Like maybe if it was like a Zuko situation where I'm like, that's not Zuko, then I'd be like a little bit more angry. But right now I'm kind of like, that doesn't seem like Aang, but I kind of like, whatever, just continue on reading. Do you think Azula was plotting to kill her mother while in prison, or did she just go with the flow of lightning? I'm pretty sure she was going with the flow. I don't think she. But that's kind of like getting into we're talking about the next book territory, so we shouldn't really talk about that. Faith character is Zuzu. Zuko would still didn't want to have his bending taken away because it would still leave him like his father. I think Zuko, if he was going evil, he would understand getting his bending taken away. I feel like Toph wasn't used enough. She has a whole comic basically dedicated to her and her students. I think she definitely was used enough. I don't think she like. If anything, you could say that. I mean, Sokka is integrated with her storyline. Yeah, no, everybody had a fairly balanced thing going on. Yeah, no, Toph was fine. Toph was fine for this comic. How does firebending not set cotton on fire? You know what? I say the same thing. Firebending should be so much more destructive than it is in the comic and the show. It really should be. So, yeah, don't go straight to killing. Yeah, you don't go straight to killing. I don't know why that's even an idea. How the time travel for Avatar series? There is no time travel. I mean, I guess you could say there's like spirit travel, and then you could see stuff from the past because past lives can tell you that kind of stuff or show you that kind of stuff. But no, there's no time travel. Then the second that time travel happens is the second that I stop dealing with Avatar. In the same way that the second that Star Wars put time travel into their timeline, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm done with Star Wars. I also enjoyed Ozai and Zuko's discussions as it was more of an insight into what the relationship in book 3 may have been. Yeah, that too, because we don't really get a lot about Ozai except for being like evil and wanting to take over the world. Actually hearing his like mentality or what his strategy is behind ruling, and just getting insight into him talking a little bit more in the context of not just like ruling and I'm Sozin's comment, was nice. I like that. And I would have liked to see more of that in the show, just seeing him, being a father. Hold on, let me put something here really quick. We're going to make you a moderator real quick. All right, cool. Can you do a versus between Zahir and Aang? No. The next one's going to be Zuko versus Katara, which is already done. I just have to film and edit it. There is a difference between a threat being neutralized and an enemy being destroyed. Yes, and I understand that sometimes you cannot neutralize a threat, and you have to put them down. Or there's actually specific situations where you have to, for example, if there's a gorilla coming at you and you have a tranquilizer gun, yes, you obviously tranquilize your gun, put them down. But let's say that that same gorilla is attacking a child at a zoo, and you can't do anything but shoot the gorilla down. Like, I kind of get that, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, granted, that's really an issue on, of course, I'm talking about Harambe, guys. But that's an issue on the zoo for not, well, the issue for the parent not watching their kid going over the gate, and also the zoo for not building up a better gate so that people can't even find a way to get in there. But when you have to make those quick decisions, I understand killing, because it's like, you can't wait around for, like, a tranquilizer to take effect and put you down, or you have to make a quick decision. And that happens usually when you cannot control the power of whatever it is that's the opposing force. So yeah, I get that mentality. How's the video on the travel time for Avatar series? That one, that takes me literal weeks to complete, and for it to not garner any views, I can't, especially with today. And I don't know if you saw my post maybe like a week ago, where I posted my schedule on my channel, but I have no time to do stuff like that if it's not going to be a return on investment. So unfortunately, the the traveling time for book 3 is going to be on complete hiatus, unless the previous 2 videos catch fire and they go viral or something like that, and they actually do return money to me, and then I'm able to set some time aside, because now I'm an adult and I have, bills and stuff and responsibilities, so I can't just make videos for the fun of it all the time anymore. I have to actually do it and actually create money. So nope, that one's not coming out for a little while, or ever. How do you feel about the Avatar severing his past lives? We already talked about that. Are y'all sad about Sokka? What are we sad about? There's nothing sad about him happening in this comic. I kind of think The Promise is my favorite comic, maybe The Search, though. I'm so annoyed that I don't know who won in the versus between Azula and Kuvira, because it's blocked in my country. Kuvira won. Faster, metal bending, can trap Azula down. I love Katara in this, though, so I can forgive them. Katara was dope. Oh, man, it was so great. Her ending with talking about, hey, like, you never would have met me, Aang. We wouldn't be able to be together if you, go through with this whole separating nations thing, and then her having the vision of them and having basically Tenzin. I mean, we don't know that that's Tenzin, because I think at that time, well, they might have known that might have been Tenzin, but seeing, them as adults and having a child and stuff like that. Also, they have some pretty mature themes that go on with these kids who are only like barely teenagers, and they're talking about like the future of their nations and like talking about children and stuff like that. I think that's kind of weird sometimes, but yeah, Katara was lovely in this comic. Are we gonna skip over what happened to Suki? I don't remember what happened to Suki. What happened to Suki? Was there a big thing that happened? Some big reveal in The Promise that happened to Suki? You're gonna have to remind me about what happened to Suki, because I don't remember, and not enough to the point where I thought it was enough warranting any conversation about. But yeah, Aang was acting kind of weird. No, I have seen Rise of Skywalker. I just refuse to talk about it, especially on the Avatar video. So we're not talking about that. Everybody had enough time. Yeah, everybody had enough time. I think in the comic, I think everybody got like literally. Toph almost has her own comic book. Like, she has her own arc in the second book of the Promise arc. How do you feel about the Kyoshi Warriors being Zuko's guarding? That's pretty awesome. And again, I think that helps too with the interaction of the nations. I think that's a very smart thing to do, kind of similar to what you do when you marry off people, or families intermarry, so that nations will kind of like not fight each other all the time. But then that also has its own issues because of loyalty, and then crazy things that can pop off. War of the Roses, if anybody's familiar with that. But I think it's awesome, because I think it's good if you have overlap of government, overlap of culture. And that's a really good one. Having the Kyoshi Warriors defending a Fire Nation, or Fire Lord. I think that was a good decision. But the biggest no-no for me is how the characters were portrayed, specifically Aang. I think everybody was, the only issue I had with any of the characters was Aang, but I think everybody else was portrayed perfectly. I think Katara was what Katara should be. I thought Zuko was exactly what Zuko should be. Sokka, of course, was Sokka. Toph was Toph. Like, I think it was all good. The only issue I had was Aang in this comic. Are the comics long enough to make a whole show as long as ATL? I would say that one comic arc could be Well, no, yeah, I would say each comic is basically an episode of Avatar because you have the same structure of like you present the issue of that one comic, and then you have dealing with that issue, having the fallout from that issue, the climax of that issue, and then the resolution. So yeah, I would say each comic because they all come in 3 comics usually when we're talking about this. Like the Promise arc is a collection of 3 parts, and those 3 parts could be their own standalone episode for sure, I would say. What a character would you like to see appear in future comics? I don't have a character necessarily that I want to see in the future comics, but I would like to see, or at least I would like to start seeing the beginning of them being adults and kind of seeing the construction of Republic City. I think that would be really dope. Seeing like Tenzin would be really cool, like as a child, and seeing them like get their family together. I think that's what I would like to see next. What character would you like to see appear in? Oh, I said that. What Zuko and Ozai's discussion was one of my favorite parts. Me too. I really liked it. It's been a while since a versus video in Avatar. We're gonna get one next week. Yeah, it has. Would you prefer Kyoshi animation based on the book Afterlife? Oh yes, for sure. I already mentioned that. I think you already know I mentioned that too in my review of the Kyoshi novel. That I would prefer an animated version of Kyoshi versus a retread of live action. I'm really not a big fan of live action in general. Live action adaptations, I should say. Not live action. Like I'm cool with live action movies, but just when they're adaptations, I think they're kind of overrated. I get that I'm in the minority and that a majority of like studios and audiences prefer live action. And that's when something actually becomes popular because that's what most people care to watch. But me and myself, unless you're in Japan, because Japan loves anime and they actually love animation there. But in the States, for some reason, we are just like obsessed with live action, and I'm just over live action. We don't need live action. I don't know what to feel about it. Do you think Toph's seismic sense can know when his tattoos glow due to the change in the chi waves? Probably not, because she's not sensing chi waves. She's sensing vibrations in the earth. How does lightning bending work? Okay, now this is becoming general. Make sure that these questions are related to the comics. We don't want to get too far off topic. What do you think about Ozai's ideals about being a Fire Lord? Of course, they're ridiculous, but I think that it's true to him, and that's what I liked about that scene is that it's very. I understand it. Like that's his character, but to say like, whatever decision you make is kind of similar to like thinking of him, like he thinks himself as like a feudal lord or like a pharaoh, like in that, whatever decision the pharaoh makes is like the will of the gods or like is the truth. Like he says, whatever decision you make as Fire Lord, that is the truth. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like he's human. He could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like this, but that's a very Ozai question to be put out, so or a notion to be put out. So I thought that was actually really good. I thought the kid in the Qatar's vision was Boomy because he's the oldest. Oh yeah, no, Boomy is is Boomy the oldest? Oh no, it goes Boomy, Kaya, then Tenzin, right? It just looks weird because Tenzin looks older than Boomy because he has the shaved head. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Boomy is the oldest, and then it's Kaya, and then it's Tenzin. But it's just weird because when you see him as adults, it looks like, and also Tenzin's more responsible. I think that's the reason too. He always seems like he's more, he's older. Not about the comments, but how do you feel about fans treating versus fights as popularity contests instead? Yeah, that happens all the time. Like that's gonna happen in any franchise, generally speaking, because more casual fans, especially in a versus scenario, don't look at actual feats and like most likely scenarios of who's gonna win, but more of like I like that one better, so that person wins. Especially in the case of Katara versus Amon, like that one I feel like is the most easy one to do because it's like, yeah, Amon's just more powerful. He has psychic bloodbending. He has better feats of bloodbending than Katara. He obviously is going to win, but then people are like, no, but I like Katara better, so she should win. Whatever, like that's going to happen. I think there's more casual fans of Airbender than there are like deep lore fans of Avatar, if that makes sense. So that kind of mentality or that kind of thing will always come up. Okay, these are all questions. I'm looking for a question that relates to comic, and then things that aren't repeated because we already talked about the silencing of Roku and the severing of connection and how Aang wasn't really Aang in this comic. Ooh, a Suki-centered story would be pretty dope. I would say, yeah, Suki should have something come up with her And especially because you're going to start running out of like conflicts and ideas for the main four. Eventually, I think you're going to need to start expanding out past the main four and seeing what's going on with everybody else in the world. Is Azula alive in Korra? Is Azula alive in Korra? It has not been mentioned if Azula is alive in Korra. Again, that's kind of a question that's not asked in this comic. But I think you guys are kind of running out of questions for the comic, so I think we're gonna start wrapping this up. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. Will Sokka and Suki break up? Oh yeah, maybe. Oh, you know, it'll be a really dope storyline, and Avatar is pretty good at doing this. And this is the last thing I'll take because I can tell you guys are running out of questions related to the comic. You guys are kind of going out into other questions. But the Avatar is really good about bringing up themes and just situations that happen in real life that isn't talked about in most other shows, especially kid shows or kid works. I think it'd be really awesome if Suki and Sokka stay together, like they stay together as adults, and Sokka wants to have children, but either Sokka is barren or Suki is barren. I think that would be a really, really cool storyline because that's a very real thing is that, you know, not everybody can have children in life. And I even had to get checked on this once because I think there was something on Facebook someone posted about like, you know, it's very rude to ask someone like, you know, if they would like to have children. And I was like, really? I think that seems like a very innocent question. You know, you just might be having small talking and, you know, they might be married or something like that. And you're like, oh, hey, you know, when are you guys thinking about having kids? Or, you know, are you guys consider having kids? Because, you know, not everybody in life can have children. And I think that'd be a really deep storyline that, hey, what if it maybe Sokka is barren, and that'd be a really deep storyline to go through and kind of see how he would deal with that, especially with Sokka being, I think he would have made a wonderful father, and I'm sure he would be very family oriented, you know, with all his dad jokes and stuff like that. But he can't have that because, you know, his body biologically just cannot sire a child. I think that would be really cool. Matter of fact, that'd be cool. You know what? Hey, Nickelodeon or whoever, like who's doing all the stories for Avatar, you know, hit me up. I would totally be down to write that story because that sounds like an amazing story about, you know, dealing with a very real world situation and understanding and giving a good reason to why Sokka doesn't have children in the future. And sometimes, and the thing about that, just a step further, the reason why I think that'd be an interesting storyline is because a lot of times couples don't survive that. Like a lot of relationships, once it gets to that point where someone's barren, it's kind of hard for the other party who might want children, depending on how strong that bond is. Like a lot of times people break up after something like that, or, you know, if they have like complications at childbirth or that they're having a hard time getting pregnant, a lot of times couples will divorce or break up. So I think that would be a pretty, that would hit the heartstrings right there. I think that'd be a pretty harsh thing to do. So I'm actually here for that, and it would make sense with Sokka seemingly throwing himself into his chief work in Korra. Yeah, like I think that would be a pretty cool storyline. And again, I think it aligns with Avatar that always tries to put light on these different social situations that aren't usually brought up. They haven't brought up anything about being people being barren, and I think it would make sense because, you know, I think it's the best way to make sense of Sokka not having kids, instead for saying like, oh no, he just couldn't find anybody. Like, no, Sokka's gonna find somebody. Like that kid, that he's a ladies' man. But to say that he can't have children and that's the reason, is like, ooh, that would hurt hard. And seeing how Sokka would deal with that and kind of showing, you know, the mentality of how someone in that situation would deal with that situation, I think it's pretty cool. Siri, go away. I don't want you. But that's it. I'm gonna do shout outs for you guys and saying goodbyes. Tomorrow I should have a video up for before you read the search, so go ahead and look out for that. And then next week we will have Zuko versus Katara. So who is in the chat right now? Ibrahim, thank you for coming out. Goodbye. Diggs, thank you for coming out. Goodbye. Fran, thank you for coming out. Goodbye. Nuisance Bird, Lego Pete, Claudio, Santhia. Who is Mahdi? What's up, man? Goodbye, goodbye. Galen Merrick, see you later. Tino Tinda Madizvidza. I know I'm saying that wrong, but goodbye. Kate, see you later. Dulls Brad, bye bye. Chin Fei Chan, goodbye. Nihilish, bye. Pat Pat Axe 3. Well, peace out. Shakia. White. See you later. Lucy. Tom. Majesty. I think I got it right. Mike Adai by Wakadaka, Cocoa Puffs by Domolisha by Therian, Smina Ray. I think I got it right. Jules Brad, Jaden. Pieces, guys. Pieces be with you. Oh, hold up. Somebody is off of the channel now. All right, cool. So you guys, bye. Ending stream. Peace.